Okay, thanks everyone. My name is Phil Vaughan, and I used to work at the University of Dundee in the Commons Department, and now at the University of Aberdeen. I'm going to chair this afternoon's session on Commando comics. We're lucky to have quite a big team from Commando, past, present and future. And what we're going to do is we'll just go along the line, everyone can introduce themselves and their role, and I've got a few questions, then we'll open it up to the floor to see if anyone else has any questions they want to ask as well. We also have a generous donation of a prize for the best question, which we'll try and decide by popular vote at the end. It's to be revealed, probably. So, all will be revealed. So, I'll pass the mic along and we'll take it from there.
Pass the mic.
Hello, I'm Hayley Austin, and I am a Commando writer.
Hello, I am Rhiannon Tate, and I am part of the editorial team at Commando.
Hi there, I'm Colin Maxwell, I'm a writer too.
I'm Gordon Tate, no relation, and I'm the Chief Assistant to Kate McAuliffe, who's the content editor, currently climbing Mount Kilimanjaro, so I'm here to answer any questions on her behalf.
Hello, I'm Grant Wood, I'm the graphic designer.
I'm Colin Laird. I started as a sub-editor on Commando in 1981 and retired as editor in 2015, and I now write for.
I am Georgia Battle. I'm a content producer with the editorial team.
Brilliant, thanks very much everyone. Okay, Gordon, we'll start with you, then we'll work around the panel. So, what is your kind of remit as Commando editor, and what else does the role involve?
Oh, it's one. Right. Well, the remit, well, it's heritage brands, so it's more than just Commando. So under that comes Brown's New, and we also do some work on the archive material, namely being on Dundee every year for a gift book. But there is a kind of wider remit to explore the archive and exploit that, which is we've done to an extent in Commando by bringing back some of the archive characters, which kind of stalled for a wee bit, but we're going to start it again, and we do have quite a lot of plans to do further publications over and above Commando. We've got, we did a Starblazer collection, which we hope to revisit soon, and we have looked at Spellbound, and we're hoping that we're going to make some announcements around that pretty soon. And that's pretty much, that's kind of the remit for Commando.
And as far as frequency goes and publications, so you have a mix of reprint and new material. Can you maybe just elaborate on that for people maybe not aware of Commando? What's the schedule and how it kind of works from a production point of view as well?
Alright, so Commando is like fortnightly, and it's set of 4 every two weeks every fortnight. 2 reprints, 2 brand new. That's pretty much as basic as that.
And production-wise, though, how long would you say is kind of an average cycle is from the script to the creation of the drawings, to the cover, to how far in advance do you work?
It will vary. We're really far in advance at the moment. Like if we go on, like we've got an artwork tracker to keep track of things, including the title. And I think we're way up, like 2023. We're way out of there. That question's probably better answered by the guys that actually do some work.
We're about May.
There you go. We're about May. Just keep feeding the answers, Georgia.
We're even further ahead with our reprints because we can just pick them. You can give me the microphone.
Yeah.
We're even further ahead with our reprints because obviously we can pick them and we don't have to do very much to them. But that's me. I'm in charge of the reprints. So if you've ever got any reprints you might want, please email us and I'll put it on the list. But we're well into 2023 for reprints, so that's how far. But the newer stuff obviously since we have to get it done all completely new, that's obviously a little
I like your mic technique as well.
Okay, but what I'm going to do is I've got a few pre-loaded questions here, and then
How loaded?
not quite loaded, and then we'll open it up to the floor as well. But first of all, I think I'll start with you because you're next to me. How did you break into Commando, and were you aware of the comic before you came to the UK? And do you find that the unique format appeals to you?
Lots of questions. So the first one, yeah, in case you can't tell, I'm from America. So I did not know about Commando when I first came here. I came here to do the Masters in Comics course with Chris and Bill. That was about 5-6 years ago. And then I learned all about Commando and Beano and Lemmings, every statue in Dundee, you know, everything like that. Comics and games. I work in games now, so it's on the brain. So I wasn't aware necessarily, but I met Georgia just through different comics clubs, Will in Georgia, and then kind of, it's Dundee, so you all kind of meet each other and get to know each other through different things. And I just mentioned that I was starting to write as part of the Masters, and Georgia mentioned that there was an open call for new writers for Commando, and that she'd send me the link to pitch. So I pitched my first one, and it got accepted with lots of edits because I had no idea what I was doing. Yeah, I just kind of kept doing that ever since, and I really do enjoy it. I think I've had 5 or 6 out now. And yeah, so no, I didn't know about it before, so I had to do a lot of reading, a lot of learning from Georgia and Kate. And yeah, I think the format does appeal to me because I like a complete story. I love how much you can get done in 63 pages, and then that it's complete. Whereas some of the serials and floppies and stuff like that I don't like as much because it just leaves you wanting more. But I want more Commando because I want more complete stories. So, sorry, long-winded, but yeah, I like it. And I love the black and white artwork, I really do. That still really appeals to me.
Okay, thanks. Yeah, it is a unique format. It used to be more prevalent, but now it's probably one of the last, in the UK anyway, digest formats, and I think that's one of the unique selling points of Commando. Rhiannon, you've written a number of Commandos now. And they all seem to have a science fiction element to them, or most of them do. So, including Beyond 2045 and Darksiders.
Yeah.
So how do these differ from the standard Commando war stories? And will we ever see the return of Starblazer as an entity?
If I have my way, yes, Starblazer would return. How do they differ? I suppose, really, instead of, like, Commando's really famous for being accurate. Like, we research every issue really thoroughly. And when you're working in science fiction, trying to extend that philosophy into fiction can be really challenging. So basically with the science fiction ones, you have to look at what the military are doing at the moment, which you can get into some really old rabbit holes actually with that stuff. But basically, yeah, instead of going back and doing research, going forward and trying to extrapolate what the military will be doing in 10, 15, 20 years' time. That's the main thing, really. Starblazer was something that I read when I was very small. So I'm very happy to work on a graphic novel. I needle the team often, so we should bring it back. So.
Bring back Starblazer, definitely. Okay, Colin, you're relatively new to Commando. I think at last time we've done 12 books, working on the 13th one at the moment.
Very good your information about us. Yeah,
from your Facebook page. All the best research is done there. So, how did you break into writing Commando, and where did you get your ideas from? I really liked your recent story title, Thomas and the Tank Engine. So, maybe just give us a bit of an insight of how you generate new ideas for Commando.
Okay, well, I got into Commando a couple of years ago. come up through the ranks, if you like, of doing indie comics, doing my own comics before that. And a couple of years ago brought out a World War II story, a true story. Gordon happened to see that and he asked if I'd like to write for Commando. It took me about a nanosecond to say aye. Coming up with ideas, lots of research. You know, I'll talk about one book. It was the 40th anniversary of the Falklands conflict this year, and I was kind of asked about November, I think, last year. You know, we haven't really got any Falkland stories. You ever thought about doing that? So literally, I spent the rest of that weekend watching every documentary I could find on Netflix and Amazon Prime. Read every book I could get at the library and came up with kind of little strands of a story from that. But a lot of the time it's kind of I look for a location, a real location, try and find out who was there, you know, what battalions, etc. were there, if it were French, the Poles, Americans, whatever. And then at some point another little bit of inspiration will come from somewhere and it'll be a thread that will go through the whole story. So it comes from everywhere, but loads of research, as Rhiannon said.
And do you get a lot of, this is kind of a question for everyone, I suppose, and do you get a lot of feedback from the readers on, you know, the research and how accurate it is?
I've got some, yeah, I do get some feedback. Lots of people follow me on Facebook or read my newsletters and things, and I'll occasionally get some feedback. I think most people are quite in awe of the amount of research that can go into it. You know, they think it's easy to write a story, but you just try to make it plausible if you can.
Gordon, as far as the story generation goes and the scripts are, I suppose, quite an unusual format as well compared to other comics scripts. Would you say that the format of that is dictated by how the artists work on the pages, the 2 to 3 panels a page? They're very descriptive, maybe compared to other comic scripts.
I'm not 100% sure if they are that different from other comic scripts. I think because writers write in different ways, but we do standardise it to an extent because there is a formula with Commando, and it isn't like no other comic, and it is a fairly limited format in as much that you've got like a small space, but you know that doesn't necessarily limit what you can do creatively within that space. But like you can't put 5 panels on a page. That's going to look ridiculous and stuff like that. So that kind of gets standardised. But as far as DC Thompson is concerned, the other comics that we do, like the humour comics, they're very different. The scripts in there are like one sentence. Like Paul Broom walks into the shed, says this, sort of thing. Whereas Commando obviously has got that like in more detail and stuff. And there's also like the reference points have to be pointed out to the artists. And some of the artists English isn't their first language, and so they're given like the references and they've got like a number attached to them, and that'll be annotated throughout the script and stuff. So that's probably a big difference between like Commando and other comic scripts. The only other comic scripts I've seen in the past would be things like the guys have written for 2000 years and stuff like that, and even within that there's lots of differences. As far as like writing for the artists is concerned, a lot of the time, particularly when I first started, it was a bit random, the artists that would receive the scripts. It maybe wasn't quite as planned as we tend to approach it with a wee bit more method nowadays.
Yeah, after we've sort of stubbed the script, we'll often have an artist in mind. But generally that's Kate's deal. She sort of sees who's available. But if we've got a specific, so I knew when I wrote quite a few of mine, I knew exactly what I wanted, and I made sure I got that person. And so if you've got somebody in mind, you sort of just ask Kate, who isn't here to defend herself, can we have this person? She'd be like, oh, maybe, and she'll sort of move around the schedule. But yeah, generally when it started, it was just like, who hasn't got a script? This is that for you.
I think it's probably worth pointing out, and well, we'll probably agree with us that what Georgia wants, Georgia gets.
As it should be.
We'll come on to, actually, Callum, we'll come to you next because you've seen it from both sides, I suppose. You're a former editor and now you're writing for the comic. So, what do you see how it's changed over the years, and how do you kind of apply yourself? And now you're working on the other side of the fence.
Well, I do what they tell me. As writers previously did for me, I now do for them. Maybe not to Gordon's standards, obviously, but Kate seems quite high. But I mean, even while I was on the editorial staff, I was writing stories there anyway, so it's not really that different. The format has changed, well, not the format has changed, the way they exploit the format has changed. It's much more extended now. We have very compressed storytelling, a huge amount of one story. You guys have expanded it a lot. It's so much so that one of my books went in as a single story, and Kate presumably you saw as well. So, this is actually two stories, you know. I'm right enough yet, and it worked perfectly well as two stories.
Double bubble.
Exactly.
And Grant, from a design point of view, as the main designer on Commando, maybe you could talk us through some of the elements of like composing, cover design, and also how the story headers work and the lettering, and how all that kind of post-processing is dealt with in-house.
Well, the covers, they're quite simple to do. Once you get the text, I collect all the covers. There's a folder full of all the images, all the text. I copy that up to the desktop, and then I open the reprints. I open them first because they're usually damaged or dirty or something. So I go and retouch all them up first and place them on the template. The new covers, they're pretty simple because they've just been scanned in, so they're quite clean. They go straight onto the template as well. And then I'll go into the titles. I'll look at the original reprint titles, and if I like the font, I'll draw it again in Illustrator, place it on the cover, and try and keep it as exact to the original as possible, if I can. If I don't like the font, I'll do it myself. The other rank of about 20, 30 fonts. All these fonts have been drawn in by myself, by hand, copied from maybe some done in the 60s or 70s. So it keeps every cover almost in that kind of style, rather than typing in a font, which will just kind of ruin it, because modern fonts just don't work with Commando. So I try to keep it all hand done and looking good, and I do that with the reprints as well, and also do that with the originals. I go back into the bank of fonts, pick a font that looks good, and then place it onto the cover.
That's remind me, many years ago, Callum actually showed me a box full of story titles that were done on acetate and painted by hand, and I think what strikes me is that, like you say, that you're not just taking a font off the shelf when you do this, you're doing quite a lot of design work digitally now. And I think that's the other major change, is that it was obviously a bit much more traditional medium when it started, but a lot of the artists now will solely work digitally, especially the cover artists. So there's been quite a lot of new cover artists and interior artists coming through as well. I just wonder how did you still like getting your hands on the original art, or do you not really have a preference between original artwork or digital?
Getting the original artwork is much more exciting. In the days we used to scan them ourselves, they used to arrive in a packet, and you'd open that packet up and you'd pull out the artwork, and you could see that the work has gone into it. But now everything's scanned in, and you're just picking it up from the folder. It's not quite the same. It's not quite the same, but you still get that impact when you open it up on the screen and you think, wow, this is a great cover.
And as far, and again, this is maybe a more general question to the editorial team, how much leeway do you give, for example, the cover artist on the composition and what it shows, and how much of that is actually over to the artist?
Absolutely none. Unless your name's Ian Kennedy. And then Ian does what Ian does. Grant's been quite modest. I think I've worked with Grant for a long time. Myself, Grant and Dan is an audience, so the kind of old timers when it comes to DCT. So Grant's one of the most talented designers I've had the pleasure of working with. And there is occasions when Grant has had to amend people's covers. One of them was Ian Kennedy's. And I remember that's quite close to me first sort of kind of starting getting to grips with Commandos, and I was a bit like, well, I'm not telling them that. So we just left it.
He didn't notice.
He didn't notice.
Okay, as you'll see on the screen there's a few examples. One that's just up there at the moment is a toned version. Generally speaking, they're pure black and white, but occasionally I have seen older issues with Gordon Livingston, for example, use zip tone and tone things up. Again, do you think that that's something that you would ever kind of dictate, or do you just let the artist decide, how they work?
Yeah, it's up to the artist. There's certain things that maybe we would advise they don't do because of reproduction. But these days, pretty much everything prints, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Like Vicente does quite kind of like swift brush strokes that leave a kind of like a natural sort of drag on it, which looks great on the printed page. Some of them didn't look so good when you read them digitally. But obviously, as we move forward, we're kind of adapting to that. We recognised that we did a couple of free issues for Comic House. And there was a couple of comments come back on that, and it wasn't until we looked at them and went, oh wait a minute, there are certain bits because the way it was scanned in, the way the artists had worked, that kind of, didn't reproduce quite so well or read as well digitally, suppose. But it's really up to the artists what they do. The tone thing, Dan Banfield's done it quite a lot recently, to great effect.
Paolo does it.
Paolo's done it he's done it for a long time, yeah. I think, yes, that was kind of up to them. We didn't really want to dictate any of the artists. We're really blessed on Commando, and it has been blessed for a long time. Should Callum, and I'll agree on this, the standard of the artwork that we get from some of the guys is just incredible. Obviously it's come out like second to none, I remember, again, when I first sort of started, I was looking at a script and it was going out to Manuel Benny, and I was kind of reading the panel description, and like my background is an illustration rather than I've not got a writing background. I come at it much more from a visual point of view, and I was kind of reading the panel description, and I was like, oh my God, there's like, how would I was thinking, how would I draw that? How would I depict that? And like a number of months later, the artwork came in. And I was looking through the envelope, and then I was blown away by what he'd done. It was just incredible. And I think that thing that you touched on it there, Grant, when you were kind of in the office, obviously with lockdown happening and COVID, even artists that previously would post the artwork started, emailing it and investing in scanners and stuff. So that thrill of looking at the original artwork is kind of like taken away from you. But I remember that, and we've worked in comics for a long time, but that thrill of looking at an original piece of artwork, whether it be an internal page or a cover, it's still amazing. It never goes away, that kind of thrill. That was a great moment for me. It kind of deepened my appreciation for what some of these guys, what we ask of them, to be fair.
I want to talk a little bit about the format, and I think I want to go round the panel about this, and I'll start with Georgia, because there's been a few kind of groundbreaking Commando stories quite recently. Two that spring to mind are probably the Commandos versus Zombies Halloween specials. And so I'll start with you. How did that come about? But I'd also like to ask the rest of the panel, how far would you push the format, and is there anything that you'd actually like to have a go at that hasn't maybe been done before in Commando?
It's like Gordon said, there actually is no rules to a Commando. Yes, generally we have the two half pages, and I remember when I started, it was, I still remember, it's generally, and this was Scott, he said it's 163 panels, that's how many, or pics, that's it. Can't go 135, and it's like between that and 160, but 160 was pushing it. And it was like, that's how many you can have. It's, you know, I remember I got given a piece of paper with the pages drawn out, and I used to have to go and I used to have to draw out which panels were going to be on which page. And since that, we've abandoned it because it was a headache and I can't really count very well. So they're actually, you can do what you like. We've had double page spreads, I've had one with 5 panels on one page before, I think. Yeah. So it's sort of like, it's just being logical about it. So obviously, if you're going to have 5 panels on one page, don't have it be a dogfight. Because otherwise, the plane's going to be like, can you over there? And you're not going to be able to see it. So it's like, sort of looking at it through the artist, like how are they going to be able to draw this? So I remember we discussed this. I really wanted full-page bleeds. I wanted full-page bleeds, and I wanted like inserts on those full-page bleeds because I wanted just to see what they did. But I think we ended up that was something you designed. And I mean, when I first saw that Commandos versus Zombies, the first one, I was astounded. I was like, this is amazing, the things we can do. But yeah, so there are no rules, but also there are rules. So I know one of the rules I was told was, if there are 2 people talking and they're only talking, like if they're in an office and someone's being debriefed, it's a quarter page. It doesn't need to be anything else. And so there are rules, but there also aren't, if that's not confusing.
And Callum, I suppose, I remember years ago discussing this with you as well about the layout of the pages. And I think you did think about the bleeds before and popping things out of panels and things like that, which hadn't really been done that much in the past. So did you find that you wanted to push that a bit more, or is it something you maybe want to look to in the future with a future story that you're writing?
Well, starting in the past, a lot of the things you can do now in Commando you couldn't do in the past because the printing was not up to it. You couldn't have done, for example, a double page spread because it wouldn't wind up. And you would have to have some kind of your dead area in the middle. And also, if you look at the earlier Commandos, you'll discover that there's a huge white margin outside all the artwork. Now, the reason that was done wasn't for anything other than the fact that printing and the cutting of the comics was so unpredictable that if you didn't do that, you either, well, you could lose half the page quite easily. So it wasn't until the printing got updated, so to speak, that we pushed, I pushed the white area as small as possible, as small as it would allow me. Obviously, we've managed to take it further, which is kind of...
Not me, Grant.
What you... So it was an actual mechanical restriction on it. Also, the 2 editors that I worked under, one was actually quite unadventurous when it came to visual things. So he liked things by formulas and ropes, which is where you get your paging chart. So there was that, although we could always push it, always could, but within more restrictive format that they have now. As to, for the future, changing things, well, it depends on the story. When I'm writing a story, and I know that I can do that, I will ask for that to be done. Now, whether it gets done or not, because the second set of eyes looks at it and goes, no, you can't do it, and that's fine. But I would ask for it on a case-by-case basis, knowing that it's a lot freer and it's a lot easier to do that now, simply because of there's a slightly more open mind looking at it, and also because technically things are much easier to do that sort of stuff.
And I suppose, Grant, with the digital artwork, although there's not so much interior digital artwork as of yet, I think there's only been a few interior digital artists, is that correct? There's a few artists who do that, but mostly still traditional on the interiors.
I think it's just Dan.
Dan, he's probably the only one. The rest is still pen and ink, and they scan it in now and send it in the email.
Do they scan it in straight all the time, Grant?
We don't scan it in straight. It takes quite a while when I get the page in, there's 61 pages of artwork. They're all squint more or less, and then I've got to straighten them all up. and they usually come in grayscale, and I've got to convert them all to bitmap, so it's a lengthy process.
You've got to fill the design space
Yeah,
somehow.
I've got to do something, yeah. But the same as the reprints, they come in as on negatives, they're scanned in on negatives, and they come in
They're squid.
it's still squint, 4 pages per scan, and I've got to convert them from negative to positive. And they're scanned in at 1200 dpi, and I've got to convert them back to 600 dpi to get them to the original size, cut each page off, paste it on a new Photoshop document, and that takes about an hour to 2 hours each. So the reprints are not any faster.
Yeah, I was going to say, it sounds like they're more work than
There's more work, yeah, there's more work.
That's actually time saving, because it used to be I had to scan them all. I had to sit on the machine and scan them all. And what you're talking about, they were wonky. You scan them in and they'd be like this. And then you would get them and you're like, what have you been doing? And I was like, I've just been following what the pages were doing.
Yeah, the artwork sometimes has not got right angles on it. Some of them are quite squint. We can change them eventually, but yeah, it's quite time consuming when you get the folder of artwork. You've got to go through it all and check it as well.
Okay, well, maybe move on. I don't know if you want to talk about the format, or should we move on to Colin?
Let's let Colin speak.
I wish I knew the rules that Georgia was talking about. I really had them written down. You know, because you do send in some story ideas and you do get knocked back occasionally. I'm just going to contrast a couple of stories. One that I sent in recently, and to be fair, it was a bit frightening, a bit scary. And I was uncertain. I thought that maybe it's pushing the boundaries a wee bit. It was about people getting brainwashed and stuff. Anyway, it got knocked back, and the kind of feedback was, Colin, that's just not Commando. Which maybe wasn't the most useful feedback. However, Rhiannon was telling me my next story is out next month, Target of Vengeance. And when I got the feedback for that one, I wasn't sure about it because there's a lot of set up in the plot, which I really wasn't sure about. But I got the feedback back, and the feedback was like 5 words. We love it, it's brutal.
And yeah, I mean, you've obviously pushed the format with the science fiction stories. Do you fancy going to go maybe one of the more traditional based stories in the future, or push that the other way?
I've done a couple of more traditional ones, and I'm doing a more traditional one now actually, like World War II essays kind of stuff. But I think, so going back to the technical end of things, what we've been saying about print being less restricted now, what's really nice about that is when you send your scripts off to the artists, you can see that they're feeling freer to put their own imagination into things, so they don't feel so restricted by these little boxes that you send them. And I think that's having a really positive effect on Commando at the moment, is that artists feel that they can put much more of themselves into stuff. And I think, that's a great direction for us to be going down. I really love the fact that it has these traditional values and you have a self-contained story. And I know we do sequels and stuff, but I think we work quite hard to make them stand alone, don't we? So you don't have to have a whole set of things and you just get in and out of things. I should love Commando at the moment. I do. Things always move forward, things always progress, and I think the rise of digital will eventually mean that maybe the artwork styles will change because there will be more possibilities for people, just because that's how digital is. But while we've still got all these amazing traditional artists, I think it's doing really well.
And Haley, any burning desires to do a story that's not been done before, or work, or even collaborate with an artist that you've not worked before?
Yeah, most of my work, I try to find a story that hasn't been done before in Commando and highlight a woman that maybe people haven't known about, or that they haven't been as involved in the narrative of war stories. That's actually my favorite part, is finding a lady, and I always try and put her in somewhere. One of my favorites was a World War I commando called Too Stubborn to Die, and it was about a mule. But I also researched and found that there was a female veterinarian who was not allowed to be a veterinarian at all. And she just went to the war anyway and was like, screw you and your rules, I'm gonna do this. So I had to put her in there. So yeah, I like doing that with each story that I do, finding somebody whose story hasn't been told, and telling it. And yeah, I get a lot of inspiration from Georgia's like panels and stuff. In my script I will say, like in Georgia's I cite her. I'm an academic at heart, so I'll be like in Tank Wife, page 61, panel 1. I want that. So yeah, and honestly, I love working with everybody. To be honest, and all the covers that come back are just incredible. So.
Okay, great. I think what we'll do now, I think we'll open it up to any questions from the audience. So if anyone has any questions they'd like to ask, please let me know and I'll give you the mic and we'll take it from there. So any questions? Oh, there's one over here, I think. Or maybe not. I'll pass this mic out if anyone has any questions, so don't be shy. Oh, here's one. Actually, I think we've got another mic working. Chris?
Through Chris.
Cheers. I was just going to. I was just going to follow on from that point that Haley made for the writers. What's it like when you first see the artwork that comes back after having envisaged the script and thought about it? What's the feeling when you see that artwork for the first time?
Oh, the feeling is amazing, and I usually flip to a page that I go, I don't know if they kept that in, and I flip to see if they did. Not usually, but but I'm like, no, I mean there's bits where I'm like, yeah, I didn't think that'd make it in, but I tried to slide it in. Some things do, but no, it's amazing. You either get the file or you buy it, and I just flip through it immediately and just go, and see what they did with it, because a lot of times we don't necessarily get feedback. A lot of times when I read it, it's the first time that I've seen what's been done, and that's really exciting.
Yeah, it's really nice to see the artwork in advance if possible. As Haley said, it's often the same time as readers are seeing it, but occasionally you get sent something. I remember the first Commando that I got to see about 5 pages, I think, of that one in advance. And I was quite excited because it was Manuel Dundee, who was just a superb artist. And Facebook and stuff's really useful because you can become friends with all these artists who live abroad, and occasionally you'll get stuff sent from them, or they'll say, I think this is your comic, Colin, so I have seen a couple of panels from my next one, which I'm quite excited about, but yeah, fantastic to see that. I've been very fortunate to have a couple of covers as well done by Ian Kennedy, who, it's just one of the most amazing artists ever.
Well, I've been doing opening envelopes of artwork for quite a long time, but you never lose that buzz. Now it's digital envelope because I'm not in the office, but you almost invariably I go, oh, he's drawn it, that's so much better than I had in my head, so that never changes.
Yeah, actually it's a bit like that for us who work on the team. I mean, obviously we get to see it because we'll then write up our own issues and give a ballooning guide to Grant, so we get to see it. Sometimes Kate will be like, your issue's in, go and look in the folder. And immediately I'm like, I can't look until I'm ready. Because it's a surprise for us as well, and it's a thrill, and you don't know necessarily what you're going to get from your own art. So for example, I just finished writing up Commandos vs. Zombie 3, and some of the choices that Vicente made, I'm like, wow, like things leaping out of things and other things, and it's just like, so we get a massive buzz from it as well. And also we sort of get a buzz from the ones we've stubbed, which we've then written up, which are like, for example, yours or yours, and we'll be like, ooh, look at that, well, oh, he's done this, or and I always get the buzz from when we were talking about zip cones and stuff like that. I really like it when they use. I'm like, oh, that's a funky carpet. Ooh, that's not look at that picture on the wall. So you never really use that buzz.
Yeah, I think I can maybe add to that a wee bit. Just pre-COVID, going into COVID, I had to step away from Commando for quite a few months, unfortunately. But obviously, I was in the office and I wouldn't see any files coming in and stuff like that. But I was sitting on the sidelines and I would look at things like occasionally look on down the tubes, and I would see like the latest covers and stuff. And I was just, I would sit there and I'd be like, oh my God, the covers, they're amazing, they're amazing. And when I came back to work, it was great. I was like really proud of it, and it's a thrill. Even though I was never part of it, I was just watching it from the sidelines, and yeah, it was amazing. I was a wee bit like, oh, these covers are getting a lot better now that I'm with them, which is really worrying.
There's something about the tangible nature of the format as well, I think, which is interesting when you see something in print. I'm an advocate for both sides, digital and print, but there's still something about seeing it finished in the book that you probably can't replicate on the screen, I would say. I think we'll ask for another question. I'm just going to say that, well, there is one here, because basically there is a prize for the best question, so if you up the ante on the questions, then you might get the prize. So.
Obviously, some of the artists that you use, or a lot of the artists that you use, English isn't their first language. What's the funniest thing that you've ever had that you've sent a script to somebody with something in it, and they've Google translated it or interpreted it? What's the funniest thing you've ever got back that really didn't fit in, but it's what they thought?
I think that's what's for you, Carl, isn't it?
No, I think George could translate.
I'm going to hand it off to you in a minute, but we haven't had one recently. It was about the Battle of the Atlantic, and one of the remember this. One of the ships was called Scottish Castle. And so in the middle of the Atlantic Ocean is a Scottish castle. And I was like, oh no. So I think we covered it with a balloon.
We've had quite a few, most of which are quite well known. I have had, in a similar vein, I've had, in the middle of a First World War battlefield, two men in a dugout canoe, because we'd asked them for them to be in a dugout. And the translator or whoever had just put dugout. So, I mean, this was an artist who'd drawn for us for decades. So why did he suddenly think we'd be in a canoe in the middle of the battlefield? This is the thing. The artists draw exactly what, well, more or less exactly what you asked them to do. This is the one-armed bandit. The one-armed bandit's British slang for a puggy machine, whatever you want to call it. But in the middle of an RAF mess in 1942, there was a Mexican with bandoliers and a sombrero, and only one arm. A mule train is supposed to be a line of mules. Not according to this artist. There's a little steam engine, Thomas possibly, with lots of coaches behind it with mules in them. There are a few others, but...
It's a good question. I think that's going to be hard to top. Okay, I think there's another question this time here.
Hello. Does Commando have any plans to follow a model like Shonen Jump does with an app that you can access back stories?
Yeah, we'd love to do that. Yeah, we'd love to do that. I mean, we're always working on stuff behind the scenes as regards like trying to get it out there in different formats. And digital is the way ahead, clearly, and we do quite well digitally already. But also the possibilities of that with like the wider archive. The fact that we've got so many commandos that are good to go. So it would be nice to think we might get there. I don't know if I'm allowed to. there's nothing official I can speak about, but we definitely, we do discuss it, and we're looking at stuff like that.
Readerly's a bit like that as well.
Yeah, we've got Readerly, there's, obviously you can buy all issues on comitology and stuff like that, but it'd be quite nice to have a destination or like if you're thinking about something like DC Infinity, that's kind of like where I would like to go, and that would be Commando and every other publication that we've got. So that's the dream.
Thanks. Any other questions on the one up here?
I was just wondering if you could tell us how you would go about submitting a story. Who do you go about doing it?
We've got on our website, there's if you scroll right to the bottom, there's a little bit that says submissions, and then there's an email. I can say the email, but it'd probably be easier to find that. But yeah, we've got a dedicated email, and we're always accepting submissions, although Kate probably won't want me to say that.
And is it done as a synopsis first for us? Yeah.
There's synopsis guides on the website. That's just on commandocomics.com. But yeah, it's right at the bottom. Scroll all the way down, and then it says submissions, and it's got the manifesto. Yeah, it's got the manifesto, and it's got like some example synopsises and example scripts on there as well that you can download.
Okay, thanks. Yeah, another question? Yes?
So I was wondering, is there any kind of tension between, the sort of nostalgic, traditional kind of Commando comics and more modern zombie sci-fi? Is there any kind of tension there?
Do you mean that me and Carl are going to have a fight? We're good friends. I don't think so. We did do quite extensive market research shortly after I started, and that was shortly after, it was about a year and a bit. And that's conducted by a third party and collated by a third party, and we get no kind of like insight what that's going to be before we all got trotted into a room with senior management to have the findings presented to us. So that's quite a nervous time, because at that point we had done a few experimental things. We had done Commando zombies, and we were looking at like sort of science fiction and stuff, and the feedback was overwhelmingly positive. There's no kind of the short answer is there's no like pushback against the more experimental material. In fact, the feedback was like they want more. They had like buzzwords up there. It was like more horror, more science fiction. And like I say, we can't influence it, and it's done by a third party. And so it was good because there is, let's say, nervousness about that. And you're sitting there with like, the bosses are there, and you're thinking, hope this feedback's good. And it was good, and it was really encouraging for us because, it gave us a wee bit more, gives us a bit of a boost, and and encouraged us to push the boundaries even further.
Good stuff. Yeah, maybe a couple more questions before we move on.
So I've heard that there's science fiction, and most of the stories that I know of are World War II, but there's future ones. Do you do historical ones as well? Yeah. Sorry, I just mainly, all the ones I've read have all been World War II, so I didn't know about the zombies, the science fiction.
There's one coming out, not this. We've had the Battle of Hastings, we've had the 100 Years War, and we had one recently with the Wars of the Roses, and there's one out, not this time, maybe the next one, and it's about the Plantagenet.
That's 100 Years War as well.
Yeah, so we're always open. If there's a story, we're willing to hear out anything, to be honest.
There have been Viking ones as well.
Yeah, there's the Viking ones.
Yeah.
Romans,
World
yeah.
War One.
Forlorn Hope is one of my favourite.
Yeah, oh yeah, Forlorn Hope, which was about Napoleonic wars. We've had like and ships and the Napoleonic War. I mean, we've been going for 60 years. I think, there's hardly anything we haven't touched. You name it. I think that's why there wasn't really that much of any tension for like zombies or sci-fi stuff. Because even before I wrote Commandos vs. Zombies, there was always like ghosts and
Carl, you did science fiction stuff.
Yeah, we did.
and space watch and stuff like that, yeah.
When I started, it was very much, it's only going to be World War II. But that was because Thompson's had other publications at the same time, so they kind of channeled us. And the only way you could bring in another war was by using a flashback sequence or something like that, which was a bit clunky. My predecessor, George, he opened things up a lot, so we went from the Roman invasion of Britain right up to the edges of space and indeed beyond.
There's the Eagles as well, isn't it?
Yeah, there's the Eagles scenes. I mean, George started up the Eagles on the Shore, which John Ridgway illustrated and stuff like that. So, yeah, it's been going on for a long time. The thing is, if we'd stuck to World War II, I don't think Commando would still be going, because you would be going down obscure wormholes to try and find something different. But as George has just said, it's not the setting that's important, it's the story's the thing. It's the interplay between the characters and what happens to them. It's more important than the setting. So no, there's not really any. I mean, personally, I wouldn't have printed the werewolves, but that's all. I wouldn't have printed the werewolves and zombies.
Okay, I think we'll take one more final question and we'll move on from there. Thanks.
Well, it's just kind of following on from the previous couple of questions. I mean, how did the demographics of the modern comic break down in terms of ages? Because it's good to see a lot of younger kind of writers and people involved in the comics. I used to buy it when I was a wee kid, and it was still very filmy, kind of World War II, God in Himmel and all that kind of stuff, Do you find a lot of younger readers in, and would that obviously have an impact? Like, they'd want to see maybe more modern stories, sci-fi, kind of diverse stories and stuff?
I'm not so sure that's quite so easy to answer. If the question is what is the demographic at the moment, that's quite broad. We mainly want to make good comics for anybody who wants to read them. And we do love the idea of younger readers coming on board. We did the Dundee Comic Con quite a few months ago now, and it was myself and Grant were standing at the table. It was quite early on in the day, and this wee kid turned up, and he was pretty young, and he was a major Commando fan, and that for us was amazing. It was like it made my day, and it was great because you're talking to his parents and he gets his pocket money and he actually goes to the shop and the newsagent tells him that those aren't there for you, and he's like, they are for me. And because I think like Commando is quite a kind of trusted brand as well. Like, there's nothing like, there's nothing offensive in it. It's really accessible. I think as we move forward, we try and we try and make them more modern in terms of like the way the story is told graphically. It's less. It's more like how can I say it? Like less descriptive, like the panels and the picture. There was one when I first started. I think it was a reprint, to be fair, but you get the description as the farmer came over the field and he saw the plane that crashed into the field, and you're like, well, we can see that. And then the panel to describe what's in the drawing, so that's quite old-fashioned sort of storytelling. And so with the modern ones, we try to eliminate that kind of thing and aim for something that people who read comics these days won't look at and go, what is that? So it has had to move with the times, and it does move with the times. And thanks a lot in large to like the kind of writers that we've got at the moment. a lot of new writers coming on board to embrace that. And the artists are always up for it. And, you know, most artists that work for us have got quite a broad portfolio and work in many different genres across the comics field. So, yeah. Does that answer the question?
Kind of. I mean, it's like you're talking about like commandos versus zombies and stuff. That strikes me as being very popular with younger people.
Yeah.
You know, that's quite good to striking out into kind of
Yeah,
fields and stuff.
yeah, we're careful that we don't want, like, it is a brand as well, and people come to the brand with certain expectations. So you've got to kind of, I don't know what to describe it as a box ticking exercise, but you kind of got to know what Commando is. But I'm kind of very much I think like there are no rules really, you know. And if you do push it too far, the fans will let you know, and the sales will reflect that as well. Unfortunately, everything that we've done has been well received. Like, you know, there's been no negative feedback on any of the initiatives that we've instigated in the past few years. So, yeah, and plenty more initiatives to come.
Yeah, I just wanted to say from the writing perspective, I do get a lot of people getting in contact with me, and some of them are people that have been fans for years and years. And then other times it's young girls, like 8 or 9, that get in contact and are just like, I love Commando. I love that one girl said girls can do anything if a girl can write a Commando and have a woman on the cover. So like that kind of stuff just makes my year, you know, all that kind of stuff. So it's hitting a really broad spectrum of people that it impacts, both people who are new coming to it and people who have been reading it for a long time, which I think is what makes it really unique and fantastic. So yeah, I just wanted to